On the night of my 7th wedding anniversary, I stood in the middle of a glittering ballroom, surrounded by friends, family, and flashing cameras. My hand was wrapped around a crystal champagne flute, but the liquid inside tasted bitter before it even touched my lips. Everyone around me was toasting, laughing, dancing, smiling, celebrating me and Ethan, the perfect couple, the golden pair. But I wasn't smiling. Not really. Because I already knew. I knew my husband was sleeping with my best friend. And the worst part? I wasn't even surprised. I wish I could tell you I found out in some dramatic way, caught them red-handed, or overheard something in a dark hallway. But the truth is quieter than that. It was slow. 1,000 small betrayals before the big one. It was the way Ethan's phone would light up every time she texted, even during dinner. It was how she started wearing the perfume I used to wear. Like a mocking whisper. It was the way their eyes met when they thought no one was watching. They thought I didn't notice. They thought I was naive, but I'm not. I just know how to wait. My name is Claire Matthews, and this is the story of how I lost my husband and my best friend at the same time. It's also the story of how I didn't fall apart, how I didn't beg or scream or break. I planned. I watched. And when the time was right, I made them both regret everything. Because now, after all the lies and betrayal, he's the one crawling back. He says he made a mistake. He says he misses me. He says he still loves me. Funny. I used to dream of those words. Now I barely feel anything when I hear them. Except one thing. Satisfaction. But before I show you how I turned the tables, you need to see where it all began. How a perfect marriage became a perfect trap. And how I turned my heartbreak into the sweetest revenge. If you were in my shoes, if your husband left you for your best friend, and then came begging to come back, what would you do? Would you take him back or make him pay? Comment below. I want to hear your answer. And don't forget to subscribe, because trust me, this story only gets better. People always say that hindsight is 20/20, and I agree. Kind of. Because when I look back now, I can see everything so clearly, the red flags, the signs, the subtle shifts in energy. But at the time, I was living in a carefully constructed illusion, an illusion I helped create because I wanted to believe in it. Ethan was my husband, the man I married after 3 years of what I thought was the most stable, respectful, passionate relationship I'd ever known. He wasn't just my partner, he was my anchor, the one person I thought would never lie to me. Never betray me. And Lauren? She was my best friend. Since college. We'd been through everything together. Breakups, job changes, family drama. She was there when I got the job offer that changed my life. She was there when my father died. She was my person. Or so I thought. It started with little things. The kind of things you dismiss at first. Ethan would smile at his phone a little too long before quickly locking the screen. Lauren started coming over more than usual. Always with some excuse, some bottle of wine she just had to share. I brushed it off. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was tired, overworked, but the feeling didn't go away. That whisper inside me saying, Claire, something's not right. I remember one Saturday afternoon, Ethan told me he was going to the gym. It wasn't unusual. He'd recently become obsessed with fitness, something he barely cared about when we first got married. An hour later, I decided to bring him a smoothie I'd just made. Some silly, thoughtful gesture. When I got to the gym, I didn't see him. I asked the guy at the front desk, and he said Ethan hadn't checked in that day. That was the first time my stomach dropped. Not suspicion, not fear, but dread. Quiet, creeping dread. When he got home, I didn't say anything. I watched him lie to my face. The gym was packed today, and I smiled. I nodded. I kissed him on the cheek and said, You must be exhausted. That night, I barely slept. I started paying attention after that. Not snooping, not yet, just watching, listening, picking up on things I used to ignore. Like the way Lauren started wearing red lipstick. Something she always said clashed with her skin tone. But now, suddenly, it was her signature. Or the way Ethan's cologne started to linger on the guest bathroom towels, where Lauren always freshened up before we went out. It sounds ridiculous, I know. But when you've known someone for years, you notice the smallest changes. You feel them. One night, we had a few friends over for drinks. It was casual, low-key. Lauren arrived in a tight red dress and heels that clicked like gunshots on the hardwood floor. She greeted Ethan with a hug that lasted a heartbeat too long. I watched him close his eyes for a second when her arms wrapped around him. No one else noticed. But I did. Later that evening, I caught them whispering in the kitchen while I was setting up the dessert tray. When I walked in, they both jumped apart, like teenagers caught sneaking around. "Oh, just talking about your birthday next month," Lauren said with a laugh. Ethan added, "Yeah, it's a surprise. No peeking." But I wasn't smiling anymore. The final push, the moment the doubt stopped being doubt, came a few weeks later. Ethan left his laptop open on the couch. He never did that. He was obsessive about his privacy. But that day, it was just there, open, logged in, unlocked. I didn't plan to snoop. I swear I didn't. But something made me sit down. Something made me open the browser. In the search history, gifts for a woman you're not supposed to love, how to end an affair without hurting her, luxury hotel downtown, plus hourly rates. My breath caught. My hands trembled. My heart, numb. I didn't cry. Not then. I just closed the laptop, stood up, and went to brush my teeth. That night, Ethan curled into me in bed, kissed my shoulder, and said, "I love you." I didn't say it back. I just stared at the ceiling and thought, it's happening. The thing I thought would never happen to me, it's happening. But I still wasn't ready to confront it. Not yet. Because part of me needed proof, and another part of me wanted to see how far they'd go. The human mind has a funny way of protecting itself. Even when the evidence is staring you in the face, it still whispers, maybe there's another explanation. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe this isn't what it looks like. That's what I told myself, again and again, until I couldn't anymore. A week after I saw Ethan's browser history, Lauren invited me for brunch at this cute little cafe we used to go to in college. The kind of place with mismatched chairs, chalkboard menus, and the smell of cinnamon everywhere. I almost didn't go, but I needed to see her, face to face. I needed to look her in the eyes and ask myself one last time, could she really do this to me? She was already seated when I arrived, sunglasses on, coffee in hand, texting furiously. She smiled when she saw me, but it was rushed, forced, almost nervous. "Claire, you look amazing," she said, reaching out to hug me, and I hugged her back. But something in me had gone cold. We talked. About nothing. Weather. Work. Her latest Pilates obsession. And then she asked me, out of nowhere, "So, how are things with Ethan? You two still all cute and perfect?" It sounded like a joke, but there was something behind her eyes. A flicker. A dare. I shrugged. Same as always. "Why do you ask?" She took a sip of her coffee and smiled. "No reason. Just, curious." That's when I knew. No one asks a question like that unless they already know the answer, or unless they're hiding something they want you to figure out. I didn't react. I just smiled back and said, "We're good. Really good." But something changed in that moment. Something inside me shifted. I wasn't sad anymore. I was focused. The next day, I decided to go through Ethan's phone. I'd never done that before. Not once in our entire relationship. But after what I saw in his search history, and the way Lauren looked at me, I needed the truth. No more maybes. Ethan always kept his phone locked. But I knew the passcode. I'd seen him enter it 1,000 times. 0923, Lauren's birthday. That should have been my first clue. I waited until he fell asleep. His phone was on the nightstand, charging. I picked it up slowly, careful not to wake him, entered the code. It opened. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely think straight. I went straight to his messages. Nothing. A few group chats, some coworkers, my name. All clean. Too clean. Then I opened his hidden photo folder. And there it was. Pictures. Dozens of them. Lauren. In his car. In his arms. In our house. Selfies. Screenshots of texts. One photo of her. In my robe. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. But the worst wasn't the images. It was the video. They were in a hotel room, laughing, drinking, kissing. And then Lauren turned to the camera and said, "She still has no idea." I dropped the phone. Literally. It hit the floor with a soft thud, but Ethan didn't wake up. I stood there, frozen, staring at him while he slept. Peacefully. Like he hadn't just ripped my heart out and filmed it. I walked to the bathroom and locked the door. I stared at myself in the mirror for a long time. I looked normal, calm, even, but I wasn't. I felt like I was watching someone else's life, like this wasn't real, but it was. And now, I had proof. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. Instead, I felt something else rising inside me. Not sadness, not fear, power. Because now I knew exactly who I was dealing with. And now that I had the truth, I could finally decide what to do with it. I thought that once I had the truth, once I saw the photos, the messages, the video, it would bring me some kind of closure. That knowing for sure would be a relief, but it wasn't. It was worse. Because now it wasn't just a feeling. Now it was real. And once something becomes real, it becomes irreversible. That night, after I found the video, I didn't sleep. I lay next to Ethan in bed, staring at the ceiling while he snored softly beside me. His arm rested over my waist, like everything was fine, like he wasn't lying to me. Every single day. I didn't cry, not a single tear. It wasn't because I wasn't hurt. I was shattered. But the pain was buried so deep, it felt like it had frozen into something else. Something harder, heavier, colder. In the morning, I acted normal. I made coffee. I packed his lunch. I even kissed him goodbye at the door. He smiled at me like he always did, like I was the woman he loved. And for the first time, I felt disgust, because he was so good at pretending, so good at lying to me, and I had been so blind. After he left, I sat on the kitchen floor for almost an hour. Just sat there. No phone, no distractions, just me, trying to make sense of what my life had become. I thought about all the things I had done for that man, all the times I had put his needs first, the late nights I stayed up proofreading his presentations, the job I turned down in Chicago because he wasn't ready to move, the way I let him grow while I stayed still, so we could build a future together. And I thought about Lauren. How many times had I defended her, backed her up, wiped her tears when she was heartbroken? I was the one who helped her set boundaries with toxic men, and now she was the one betraying me with mine. It wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation. It was being made to feel small by the two people I loved most. There's something uniquely cruel about being betrayed in secret. They were walking around, living their lives, kissing my cheeks, eating my food, while stabbing me in the back. And yet, I still didn't confront them, because in that silence, in that pain, a new emotion started to take shape. Not sorrow, not even rage. Clarity. I didn't want apologies. I didn't want explanations. I wanted control. For once, I wanted to be the one holding the cards. I wanted to watch them squirm. I wanted to know what it felt like to have the upper hand. So I waited. I started observing everything. Where he went, what he wore, when he came home late. I noticed when Lauren's car would disappear from her usual parking spot for hours in the middle of the day. I didn't ask questions. I didn't show emotion. I smiled. I nodded. I played my role. Because now I wasn't just a wife. I was a woman with a mission. I wasn't sure what my plan was yet, but I knew it had to be smart, calculated, clean, something that would hit them exactly where it hurt. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done in years. Not to process feelings, but to document. Dates, times, patterns, behavior. Everything they did, I wrote down. Because if they wanted to turn my life into a game, fine. I was going to play. But I was going to play to win. I think that's the thing people don't expect from women like me. The quiet ones. The ones who seem soft, loyal, safe. They don't realize we watch everything. And when we finally decide to strike, we don't miss. That night, I opened my laptop and created a new folder on my desktop. I titled it Plan A. Oh, it wasn't much at first. Just some notes, screenshots, and ideas. But it felt like power. It felt like taking something back. And for the first time in weeks, I slept. Not because the pain was gone, but because I finally had a direction. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew this. When I was done, neither of them would see it coming. There's something strangely satisfying about being underestimated. People think you're fragile, that your silence means surrender. But sometimes, silence is strategy. For the next few weeks, I played my part flawlessly. I smiled at Ethan in the mornings. I kissed him goodnight. I laughed at his jokes. I let him think everything was fine. Better even. He started acting more relaxed around me, almost smug, like he believed he'd gotten away with it. And Lauren? She didn't change a thing. She still called me like nothing was wrong, still gossiped about mutual friends, sent me memes, invited me for drinks. She even had the audacity to say, "You're glowing lately. What's your secret?" I almost laughed. My secret? I knew everything, and she had no idea. But here's what I've learned about betrayal. The best revenge doesn't come from rage. It comes from control. So I started planning, carefully, patiently. Step 1. I started building my financial independence in secret. Ethan had no idea how much money I actually made at my job. Early in our marriage, I let him handle most of the finances. But now, I opened a new bank account under my name, started moving small amounts weekly, just enough not to raise suspicion. I also reached out to an old college friend who worked in real estate, told her I was just curious about listings in the city. She didn't ask questions. She sent me a few discreet options. I saved them all in my Plan A folder. Step 2. I began gathering proof, not just of the affair, but of who they really were. Screenshots, emails, dates, times. Lauren's car showing up on our street when Ethan said he was at work. A receipt from a boutique hotel I found in his jeans pocket with a checkout time that lined up perfectly with the late meeting he said he had that day. I started saving it all in a private drive. Step 3. I reached out to a therapist. Not for healing, but for documentation. Every session was recorded in my notes. I needed a record of my mental and emotional state. Not for myself, but in case I ever needed it legally. I wasn't just planning revenge. I was preparing for every possible outcome. By the 3rd week, I had laid the foundation, and that's when I decided it was time to set things in motion. I invited Lauren over for wine night, just like we used to do. I cleaned the house, lit candles, played our favorite playlist. I wanted everything to feel familiar, comfortable, predictable. She showed up in high heels and brought a bottle of our favorite rosé. We laughed. We talked about old memories. She even cried a little talking about her bad luck with men. The irony wasn't lost on me. And then, casually, I mentioned Ethan's new promotion. A lie, of course. But I wanted to see her reaction. She paused, just for a second. And that was all I needed. Because I saw it. That flicker of panic behind her eyes. She wasn't just sleeping with my husband. She had plans. And that's when I knew. My revenge couldn't be petty. It had to be permanent. Something that would stick. Something they'd never recover from. So I smiled and said, "You know, I'm thinking of throwing a party soon. Just something small. You and Ethan, a few close friends. We haven't done that in ages." She lit up. "Yes, that sounds amazing." I poured her another glass. We toasted to friendship. And inside I smiled, because they had no idea that the party would be the beginning of the end. Let me ask you something. If you were in my place, would you confront them now? Or keep playing along a little longer to make the fall even harder? Comment below. I want to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe if you're still with me. Because trust me, it's about to get a lot more interesting. The thing about betrayal is that it teaches you how to lie. I used to be terrible at it. Couldn't fake a thing. But after being lied to so smoothly, so effortlessly, I learned from the best. So I gave Ethan exactly what he wanted. Peace, stability, familiarity. I woke up early, made coffee just how he liked it, let him vent about work, laughed at the same tired jokes. I stopped asking questions, stopped checking his phone. I let him relax, let him believe the storm had passed. And that's when he got comfortable again. He started coming home later, sometimes with lipstick marks I pretended not to notice. He left his phone around unlocked. He smiled more, touched me more, like he was trying to reassure himself that the lie was working. And Lauren? She played her role just as well. She started texting me more. Girl time invitations, funny videos, even selfies of her out shopping. It was almost impressive. the way she could look me in the eye and say, "You and Ethan are goals." I nodded, smiled, and took a mental note of every word. They thought they were winning, but they were just getting deeper into the trap I was setting. Meanwhile, I was moving in silence. I finalized the paperwork for a private apartment lease, under a pseudonym, in a building Ethan had never even heard of. I started quietly transferring household utilities out of my name. I moved sentimental items, photos, heirlooms, personal documents, into a storage unit 2 towns away. Piece by piece, I was removing myself from the life they thought I'd never leave. I even went as far as creating a new email, new passwords, a new emergency contact. Everything about my life was being duplicated, quietly mirrored, ready to replace the version they thought they controlled. And then, the invitations went out. I told Ethan I was throwing a Friendsgiving dinner, just something small and intimate. He loved the idea, said it would be nice to reconnect with people. I let him help plan the menu. I even asked Lauren to help me pick a dress for the night. She chose a green satin gown. "It brings out your eyes," she said. I thanked her with a smile, knowing I'd burn that dress in my mind forever. The night of the party, everything was perfect. Candlelight, jazz in the background, a beautifully set table for 12. I cooked Ethan's favorite dishes, opened his favorite wine, made sure every guest had a seat exactly where I wanted them. Ethan and Lauren sat across from each other, not next to each other, not too close, but just enough to make them sweat, because seated between them were 2 people who mattered. My cousin Jenna, an attorney who knew everything, and Matthew, Lauren's ex-boyfriend, the one she always said never really got over her. I invited him on purpose. The whole evening was an experiment, a rehearsal. I wanted to watch them squirm, to see how they'd act under pressure. And they delivered. Nervous glances, overcompensating laughs, Ethan's hand on my back a little too often, Lauren's fake compliments a little too loud. They were trying so hard to look normal, they looked guilty. But the best part? No one else noticed. They were all too busy enjoying the food, the music, the ambiance, and that made it even better, because it proved one thing: I was in control. By the time the last guest left, Ethan wrapped his arms around my waist in the kitchen and whispered, "Tonight was amazing. I forgot how good we are together." I smiled and kissed him, not because I meant it, but because the illusion needed to stay intact. He didn't know that 2 hours earlier, I had emailed myself a copy of the hotel receipt I found in his pocket, using his work email. He didn't know that the wine Lauren was drinking had a tiny sticker on the bottom of the glass, one that would show up in a photo I took that night, a photo I planned to use later, when the time was right. Every detail, calculated, every moment, recorded. They thought they were ahead, but they were already in checkmate. They just didn't know it yet. There's something almost theatrical about betrayal. Just when you think you've reached the final act, another curtain rises, revealing something even darker than before. I thought I had seen the worst of it. The cheating, the lies, the manipulation, but I was wrong, because it turned out, the affair wasn't the biggest betrayal. It was what they were planning next. It happened 2 days after the dinner party. I was in the kitchen working on my laptop when Ethan came home early, earlier than he ever did. He looked flustered, almost guilty. I asked if everything was okay, and he said he wasn't feeling well. I offered him tea, and he said no. Then he went straight to the shower. Strange. Not suspicious enough on its own, but strange. While the water ran, I heard a ping from his phone. It was on the counter, face up, unlocked. Just one word on the screen. Confirmed. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. I shouldn't have opened the message, but I did, and what I saw shifted everything. The message was part of a longer thread, and it was from Lauren. Not romantic, not even flirtatious. Cold, calculated, like a business transaction. Lauren, she's still clueless. Once it's signed, we move forward. Lauren, he said it'll be done by next week. Make sure your lawyer checks it. Lauren, we need the account clean. I don't want any of her name on it. They weren't just cheating on me. They were trying to cut me out of my own life. They were planning something. Financial. Legal. I didn't understand all of it right away, but I knew enough. They weren't just playing with my heart anymore. They were coming for what I built. I backed away from the counter, breath caught in my throat. My chest burned, not from pain, but from a surge of something sharper than rage, resolve. I left the phone exactly where it was. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Instead, I called my cousin Jenna, the attorney. I told her I needed to meet immediately. We sat in her office, going through everything. My journal, the screenshots, the messages, the receipts, even a voice memo I had accidentally recorded while Ethan was on the phone one night, talking in low tones about cleaning up the assets. She looked me in the eye and said, "Claire, they're planning to screw you over. Completely." That was the moment I let go of any illusion that this could end cleanly, that Ethan might, at some point, feel guilty, that Lauren might hesitate. They weren't hesitating. They were accelerating. Jenna helped me draft a series of quiet legal moves, freezing shared assets, initiating a silent separation of property, triggering a clause in our prenup that Ethan probably forgot existed. He always thought the prenup only protected him. He never imagined I had added my own terms, cleverly worded, hidden between lines his lawyer never questioned. He never read the fine print. Now, it would work in my favor. While they thought they were stealing from me, I was already locking them out. But I wasn't finished, because there was one more thing I needed to know. I hired a private investigator. It felt dramatic, like something from a movie, but I needed facts, proof, something beyond what I could find on my own. And what he brought me broke the last piece of me that still believed there was anything left to salvage. They weren't just having an affair. They had been planning it for over a year. Lauren had inserted herself into every part of our life on purpose. She had encouraged Ethan to take risks, financial, professional, just to weaken our foundation. She had suggested we explore new experiences as a couple, encouraged distance, supported every decision that drove a wedge between us. It was all intentional, calculated. And Ethan? He wasn't just going along with it. He was in on it. Every step, they wanted me out. Of the marriage, of the house, of the life I built. But they made one fatal mistake. They thought I was naive. They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought I wouldn't fight back. They were wrong, because I wasn't broken anymore. I was awake. And now, it was my turn. The thing about revenge is, the best kind isn't loud. It's quiet, subtle. It doesn't leave bruises. It leaves questions. And that's exactly how I wanted them to feel. Confused, nervous, paranoid, wondering what was happening, wondering if maybe, just maybe, I knew. But by the time they figured it out, it would already be over. I started small. The first thing I did was move out. Without warning, without a fight. One morning, while Ethan was at work and Lauren was probably somewhere texting him from behind my back, I packed only what mattered. Important documents, family heirlooms, sentimental pieces. Everything else? I left behind like it never belonged to me. When Ethan got home, the house was spotless, cleaner than usual. The drawers were closed, the bed was made, but I was gone. No note, no message, just silence. He called me 11 times that night, left voicemails, texted things like, "Where are you? What's going on?" And, "Are you okay?" I didn't answer. Instead, I let my lawyer do the talking. Jenna served him papers 2 days later. Not for divorce, yet. That would have been too simple, too expected. She served him with a legal motion to freeze the joint accounts, request an immediate forensic audit of our shared finances, and contest every single business asset that had my name even remotely tied to it. Turns out, Ethan had used my credit score and name to secure a loan for a project I didn't know existed. Now he'd have to explain that in court. Lauren, of course, was caught in the crossfire. The boutique hotel they loved so much? I sent them a polite but detailed legal letter, informing them that their staff was being subpoenaed for testimony regarding dates and guest records. Discreetly, of course. A week later, Ethan showed up at my office. Yes, my office. The one he never visited while we were married. He stood in the lobby like a lost child. I walked right past him, without stopping. He called after me, but I didn't turn back. He wasn't entitled to my time anymore. Not after what he did, and especially not after what I was about to do next. Because the next phase of the plan was public. I didn't want to humiliate them. I wanted to expose them. So I hosted a second dinner party. Same tone, same guest list. Except this time, I added just a few more people. People who mattered. A few of Ethan's colleagues from his new job. A few of Lauren's PR clients. And of course, my cousin Jenna. The setting was elegant. The food was perfect. And I wore the green dress Lauren picked for me weeks ago. The one she said brought out my eyes. It had never looked better. Ethan came alone. Lauren came late. And when she saw the room, her face dropped. Because seated around that table were people who knew everything. And they didn't know because I told them. They knew because I showed them. I projected a short slideshow. One I claimed was a tribute to memories and milestones. It started with sweet photos of me and Ethan through the years. Then it shifted. Screenshots, messages, dates, hotel bills, timestamps, no names, no context, just images and timestamps. Enough to make anyone smart connect the dots. And judging by the looks exchanged across the table, they did. No one said a word, but the silence was loud. After the dinner, people left quickly, quietly. Lauren tried to pull me aside, stuttering something about a misunderstanding. I smiled. You might want to check your calendar, I said. Looks like you've got a lot to answer for. That week, Lauren lost her biggest client. Ethan was called into a professional review by his company. Their secret, once so tightly kept, was now a slow-spreading fire. And me? I moved into my new apartment. I changed my number. I began again. No breakdown, no confrontation, no begging, just peace. Because in the end, I didn't need to destroy them. They did that all on their own. I just gave them the mirror. It's strange how quiet the world becomes after everything explodes. No yelling, no crying, no grand apologies. Just silence. And in that silence, something shifted. Ethan didn't implode right away. At first, he pretended not to feel the weight. He acted like the whole thing was a misunderstanding that time would smooth over. He sent texts that were carefully worded, soft, casual, like we'd just had a small fight. Can we talk? I miss you. Still thinking about you. He never said the word sorry, not once, because men like him don't think they need to apologize. They think time heals because they've never sat long enough with consequences. I didn't answer a single message, not even to say no, because I wasn't interested in giving him a way back in. Closure doesn't come in the form of a conversation. It comes when you stop waiting for one. Lauren tried a different approach. After weeks of silence, she left me a voicemail. I recognized her voice immediately, only it didn't sound like her anymore. It was shaky, small. Claire, I messed up. I didn't mean for it to go this far. You were my best friend. Please, I miss you. Funny. She used to be the most confident person I knew. Untouchable. Now she sounded like a little girl begging not to be left alone. But I didn't feel angry or satisfied. I felt done. Not because I stopped caring, but because I finally understood. I wasn't the one who lost anything. They were. They lost me, my loyalty, my presence, my protection, and they would never get it back. Their punishment wasn't public disgrace or screaming matches. It was me, disappearing completely from their lives, without warning, without explanation, just gone. And slowly, things around them began to shift. Friends stopped inviting them to gatherings. People grew quiet when their names came up. No one wanted to be caught in the fallout. It wasn't because I told anyone what happened. I didn't need to. I just let the truth breathe. And that was enough. Lauren lost a major client after the dinner party. Ethan's job put him on a performance review. Whispers started in all the right rooms, and they couldn't stop them. They tried damage control, of course. Pushed the narrative that it was complicated, that nobody really understands what happened between us. But the people who mattered? They understood. They saw through it. I started getting messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Old friends, colleagues, even one of Lauren's former roommates. Some offered support. Others just wanted to say they finally saw the truth. I didn't answer most of them, because I wasn't looking for validation. I already had it, within myself. I moved into a small but bright apartment in a quiet part of town. I painted the walls in soft tones, filled the shelves with books I loved, lit candles at night just because I could. I stopped wearing the perfume Ethan used to buy me. I started drinking tea instead of coffee. I changed my routines completely, not because I was running from memories, but because I was choosing new ones. For the first time in years, my life belonged only to me. I went back to therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to grow. And I asked myself hard questions. Why did I stay so long? Why did I silence my instincts? Why did I believe I had to earn love by sacrificing parts of myself? The answers came slowly and painfully, but they came, and with them came grace. Not for them, for me, because I had spent so much time trying to protect people who would never do the same for me. Now I was protecting myself, and that changed everything. One afternoon, months later, I saw Ethan at a bookstore cafe near my office. He looked smaller somehow, like the light in him had dimmed. He saw me before I could turn away. He smiled, hesitant, almost afraid. "Claire," he said, like it still meant something. I gave a polite nod. He asked if I had time for a quick talk. "Just 5 minutes." I looked at him, and for a second I searched for the woman who once would have said yes. But she was gone, buried under months of silence, healing, and strength. I said, "I hope you find peace, Ethan." Then I walked away, not dramatically, not to make a statement, just forward. And that's when I knew I was free. No more waiting, no more explaining, no more hoping someone else would give me the love I always gave so freely. I had reclaimed myself, my time, my energy, my story. They thought they had broken me, but they didn't break me. They revealed me, and that was the most powerful thing they ever did for me. It's strange how sometimes the loudest moments in your life happen in complete silence. That was the thought running through my head as EU walked along the old wooden dock that stretched out over Lake Meriwether, just outside the city. The sky was heavy with clouds, but there was no storm. The wind was cool, just enough to make the surface of the lake ripple gently. The air smelled like pine and wet earth, the scent of every childhood summer I ever had, every memory that had nothing to do with Ethan or Lauren. I hadn't been back there since the beginning, before the wedding, before the lies, before the version of me I thought I had to be in order to be loved. I was alone, by choice. In my hands, I held a small wooden box, one that once sat on my nightstand for years. It had been a gift from Ethan, ironically. Inside it were just a few items, nothing valuable in the financial sense, but emotionally, they had once meant everything. I sat at the very end of the dock, legs folded under me, the box resting on my lap. Inside were 4 things: a printed photo of our wedding day, me, smiling wide, eyes full of dreams, him, standing beside me with a look I no longer trusted, a necklace with a small emerald pendant, my birthstone, a gift he gave me on our 3rd anniversary, a letter from Lauren. It was handwritten, filled with inside jokes and memories and promises like, "We'll grow old together, no matter where life takes us." And finally, the green satin dress she chose for me, the one I wore at the dinner party, the one that had once made me feel beautiful, before I knew it was all part of the performance. I pulled out each item and looked at them one last time, not to mourn them, but to acknowledge that they happened, to honor the version of me who held onto them for so long, thinking they meant something that couldn't be undone. I stood slowly, walked to the very edge of the dock, and one by one, I let them go. The photo fluttered before it hit the water, landing softly and starting to sink. The necklace disappeared almost immediately. The letter floated for a while, then folded in on itself. And the dress. I let it slip from my hands, watched as the fabric fanned out across the surface before the weight pulled it down. There was no dramatic music, no screaming, no tears, just quiet. A stillness so complete, it felt like the world had paused just for me. I sat back down on the dock, now empty-handed, and let the wind move through my hair. I closed my eyes and took the deepest breath I had taken in months. I expected to feel grief, or maybe relief, but what I felt was something else entirely. Space. Space inside me where all that pain used to live. Space to grow, to dream again, to rebuild something real, something that was mine. I didn't need to burn bridges. I didn't need to ruin anyone's life. I just needed to walk away without carrying the wreckage on my back. I opened my eyes and whispered something to the air. Not for Ethan, not for Lauren, not even for the past version of myself. Just a truth that finally felt whole. You didn't break me. You freed me. Because that's what betrayal does, if you let it. It destroys the illusions you were living under. It rips away the comfortable lies. And when the dust settles, what's left is the raw material of who you really are. I wasn't the woman they thought they could manipulate. I wasn't the woman who would collapse in the face of abandonment. I wasn't the victim. I was the one who got away. The one who saw the truth and didn't flinch. The one who left. Not because she was weak, but because she finally remembered her worth. And that day, on the edge of that lake, with nothing in my hands and everything ahead of me, I finally felt whole. Maybe your story isn't exactly like mine. Maybe your heart was broken by someone else. A parent, a friend, a partner, a version of yourself you trusted too much. But heartbreak? Betrayal? That hollow, aching feeling of realizing someone you loved never really saw you? That is universal. I used to believe that strength meant holding on, enduring, keeping the peace, even when it was destroying me inside. But I've learned that true strength is letting go. It's walking away with your dignity intact. It's choosing to save yourself, even if it means leaving behind people you once swore you'd never live without. Healing doesn't happen in one moment. It's not a big dramatic breakthrough or a perfect, clean ending. It's slow, messy, quiet. It's making one better decision after another, until one day, you wake up and realize it doesn't hurt like it used to. If you're still here, listening to this, maybe you're standing at the edge of your own ending. Maybe you're questioning whether it's time to let go, to stop trying, to start over. If that's the case, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me. You don't owe your healing to the person who broke you. You don't need closure to move on. You don't need revenge to win. You just need to choose yourself, fully, completely, and without apology. One day you'll look back at the moment it all fell apart, and you'll see that was the exact moment you started becoming someone stronger, wiser, and freer. So to whoever needs to hear this, you didn't fail. You evolved. And no matter how painful it feels now, it won't feel like this forever. Have you ever gone through something similar? Did you have to walk away from someone to protect your peace? Share your story in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear it. If this story moved you, leave a like, send it to someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel. There are still so many stories left to tell. And remember, sometimes the plot twist you're waiting for begins the moment you stop going back.